The storm raged, a relentless curtain of rain against the grand windows of Harrington Manor. Inside, a different kind of storm had just passed. Lord Harrington, a man whose wealth was matched only by his enemies, lay dead in his study. The air, thick with the scent of old books and fresh blood, held its breath. A single call shattered the silence, summoning the one man in the city who could unravel such a tangled web. Detective Miles. Detective Miles arrived, his trench coat dripping onto the polished marble floors. He was a man who saw the world in shades of truth and lies, and tonight, the lies were everywhere. His eyes, sharp and discerning, swept over the crime scene. A toppled glass of brandy, a scattered deck of cards, and the final still expression on the Lord's face. Everything was a piece of the puzzle. He knew the answer was here, within these opulent, suffocating walls. His investigation began with the people who stood to gain or lose the most. First, Lady Beatrice, the Lord's young wife. Her beauty was a mask, her grief a performance. She spoke of her deep love for her husband, but her eyes darted nervously towards a half-hidden drawer. Was she a grieving widow or a black widow? Miles made a mental note. Next was Mr. Sterling, the business partner. His face was a thundercloud of resentment. He spoke of partnerships and profits, but his words were laced with the bitter poison of jealousy. He claimed to be at his club all night, but a smudge of mud on his expensive shoes told a different story. And finally, there was Miss Evelyn, the maid. She had served the family for decades, a silent observer to their decadent lives. She seemed terrified, her hands trembling as she clutched her apron. She spoke of the Lord's recent temper, his arguments, but what secrets was she hiding behind her loyalty? 3 suspects, 3 motives, 3 potential lies. Miles began his methodical search of the manor, a bloodhound on a cold scent. Tucked away in Lady Beatrice's jewelry box, beneath a string of pearls, he found it, a passionate love letter. But it wasn't from her husband. The words spoke of secret meetings and a desperate plan for freedom. This pointed directly at the lady, painting her as a woman trapped in a loveless marriage, willing to do anything to escape. The case seemed to be closing in on her, but Miles was never one for easy answers. He moved to the Lord's study, the very room where life had been extinguished. Behind a false panel in the grand mahogany bookshelf, he discovered a financial document. It was a secret agreement, one that showed Mr. Sterling was on the verge of financial ruin, and that Lord Harrington was about to cut him off completely. This wasn't just a business dispute. It was a motive for murder born of desperation. Sterling's alibi was already weak, and now his financial desperation provided a powerful reason to silence his partner for good. Just as the pieces seemed to point towards Sterling, a glint of something small caught Miles's eye, half hidden under the heavy velvet curtain. He knelt down, his fingers closing around a small silver locket. He opened it. Inside was a faded photograph of a young woman. He recognized the face immediately from an old staff photograph he'd seen earlier. It was Miss Evelyn, the maid, in her youth. Why would her locket be here, in the Lord's study, lost in the middle of a struggle? This seemingly insignificant item changed everything. It wasn't a clue about money or love. It was personal, a ghost from the past. The mystery had just deepened, twisting into a knot he was now determined to untie. The grandfather clock in the hall chimed midnight. Detective Miles gathered the 3 suspects in the grand drawing room. The fire crackled, casting long dancing shadows on their anxious faces. Lady Beatrice, Mr. Sterling, and Miss Evelyn sat in a tense triangle, the air thick with unspoken accusations. Miles stood before them, a conductor about to begin a symphony of truth. He began to speak, his voice calm but commanding, weaving together the events of the fateful night. He started with the love letter, holding it up for all to see. He watched Lady Beatrice flinch, her composure finally cracking. Yes, she was having an affair. She had a reason to want her husband gone, to be free to start a new life with her lover. But Miles explained the timing was wrong. Her lover was out of the country, and her plan was one of escape, not murder. She was a conspirator in love, but not a killer. Then, he turned his sharp gaze to Mr. Sterling, presenting the hidden financial document. He laid bare Sterling's impending bankruptcy and the motive of pure, cold-blooded greed. Sterling blustered and denied, but the sweat on his brow betrayed his fear. He had every reason to commit the crime, and his alibi was flimsy at best. He was at the manor that night, not his club. He had argued with the Lord, threatened him even. It seemed an open and shut case, but Miles wasn't finished. A crime of passion, Miles mused, or a crime of business. Both are compelling. But sometimes, the most powerful motives are buried not in the present, but deep in the past. He then held up the small silver locket. He walked slowly towards Miss Evelyn, the quiet, overlooked maid who had faded into the background. Her face went pale, her trembling hands giving her away. The locket, he explained, had not been dropped by accident. It had been torn from her neck during a struggle with Lord Harrington. The room fell into a deafening silence. Miles then revealed the final, devastating truth. Decades ago, before Lady Beatrice, before Mr. Sterling's partnership, there was another woman in Lord Harrington's life. A young maid he had promised the world to, then callously discarded when she became an inconvenience. That young maid was Evelyn, and the secret she carried was not just her own. The Lord had a child he refused to acknowledge, a child Evelyn had to give up. The locket contained a picture of that child. Tonight, Evelyn had come to him, not for money, but for a final plea for him to do right by the daughter he never knew. He had laughed in her face, and in a moment of long-suppressed rage and heartbreak, she had struck him. The loyal maid, pushed beyond her breaking point, had become the executioner of her own justice. A choked sob escaped Miss Evelyn's lips, and the confession tumbled out, a torrent of pain and regret held back for years. The web of deceit was finally unraveled. Lady Beatrice stared in shock, her own drama paling in comparison. Mr. Sterling sat defeated, his own guilt overshadowed by the raw tragedy that had unfolded. The grand manor, once a symbol of wealth and power, was now just a stage for a lifetime of sorrow. As the police quietly escorted a weeping Evelyn away, Detective Miles stood by the window, watching the rain finally begin to subside. Justice had been served, but the victory felt hollow, a sad conclusion to a sad story. Thanks for watching our mystery unfold. If you love a good whodunit, make sure to like and subscribe for more tales of intrigue and suspense. See you next time.